Hi, René here. For more than a year, I had been dreaming of upgrading from a Chinese tube setup to more expensive and hopefully much better sounding French components.
Jadis, jadis, jadis,
I thought this was a step I owed to my old ears and also to my channel and its viewers, although after the purchase I went through nightmares and a depressing feeling of guiltiness. Was habe ich getan? Was habe ich da bloß angestellt? Meine Frau, meine Kinder, die werden verhungern jetzt. Aber vielleicht ist es wenigstens gut für sie. So, this is how my misery began. On the 1st of October 2023, I innocently purchased a set of JD's JA30 with a JPL preamplifier. As a precaution, I had the boxes opened and the devices tested in the shop. Everything seemed to be okay. With high-gloss objects, I'm a bit picky and did not like the fact that the employee did not wear gloves and left dozens of fingerprints on the panels and also on the tubes. Only in Hollywood movies and in YouTube clips they seem to wear gloves. Back at my home, the second unboxing was performed in my listening room. The old monarchy was deposed and the new royal dynasty was pompously installed. Both state acts required a certain amount of elbow grease because a Cefsu monoblock weighs almost 30 kilograms and a Chadis block 22 kilograms, but is almost petite, as the French would say, because it is only 21 centimeter wide, whereas the Cefsu block has an imposing footprint of 31 centimeters by 45 centimeters. I chose the JA30 with 30 watts per monoblock. The price in Europe is a little over 10,000 euros because the JA50 with 90 watts per unit or the JA80, 60 watts each, are both in the 18,000 euro realm, which is inaccessible for me, not to speak of the JA500 on 4 chassis with 350 watts per channel and with a price tag of 1.5 million Thai baht, respectively almost 50,000 euros. Of course I could sell my house, but in that case I still wouldn't have a helping hand to toss around those 240 kilograms for testing and reviewing the bone-breaking heavyweights. The Chinese monoblocks will set you back some 3,500 euros, including shipping plus import taxes, so that in the end you will at least pay more than 4,000 euros, and you still don't have a reasonable warranty, and in case of a substantial damage, nobody would be able to repair it. The JA30 is able to drive speakers with a resistance between 1 and 16 ohms after a small modification, and accepts speakers from 4 to 8 ohms on a single pair of outlets, which will cover most speaker models on the market. No need to choose between the usual 4 ohm and 8 ohm sockets because there is only one pair. If you contradict me and say you still see 2 pairs, that is correct, but the second pair is not meant to make you choose between a higher and a lower resistance, but for bi-wiring or driving a subwoofer. The JA30s come with 2 KT150 tubes each, but after a small modification, which should be done by a reliable service partner, you can also use EL34, KT88, KT90 or 6550 if you insist on using one of these tube types. Should your KT150 need replacement, you can easily get a Tungsol for $130 per piece, or the more expensive tubes pre-selected by Jadis. And the 3 ECC82 plus the ECC83 won't break the bank either. Finally, let's talk about a preamplifier, the JPL Mark II, at a price level similar to the JA30s, which means that another 10,000 euros will be drawn from your credit card. When you compare this to the price of, let's say, that of a Cayenne CS6 for 2,600 euros, your heart will be a bit heavier, because we are talking about 4 times more money. Is it worth it? Or is that only a high-ender's dizziness? I hope I will be able to answer this question in a future review after burning in the tubes. The very first problem I had with my JA30 amps was a nasty hum, which I had not heard in the shop, but in the silence of my listening room it was suddenly there. After a few days I returned the JPL to the shop and upgraded to a JP30 MC Mk3 because I thought the separate power supply would be more sophisticated and reliable. I reactivated my Bell's 28 reference preamplifier and performed the following test. My digital music source for this test was the Accuphase JP30. It is connected to the CD inputs of the Bell's preamp. These interlinks send the signal to the JA's JA30. Left channel and right channel. The two monoblocks are running on standby now. There is no sound to be heard. Now I'm switching to full operation mode. And again, there is absolutely no sound, no hum, no noise. When I turn up the volume, it's dead quiet again. I can go up to 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. There is no sound. The very last step is a test with music. The volume knob is in 10 o'clock position. My electrical installation is beyond reproach. A shielded AC cable leads from the load center straight to a live audio plug, and a live audio signature 1 cable is plugged into the filter unit from where the components are fed from a single point power outlet source. No household gadgets can interfere. I even switched off the power supply for the whole house and left this single breaker in on position. The hum remained. For many years my installation had worked perfectly with transistor and tube amplifiers, with the Bell's combo, with Cayenne components, with my Chinese monoblocks, with a Unison Trio 25. Only the JDs caused the terrible hum. To make things even more complicated, the JDs created 2 different layers of hum, a sizzling hum as a bass tone and a rattling sound which turned itself on and off all the time in irregular intervals. and it was not the type of hum which you can hear only when you put your ears close to the speakers.
Oh, did you see that?
Needless to say that with different speakers, the problem was the same. When I tried to run my Bell's power amplifier with the Chady's JP30, there was almost no sound. Therefore, I gave the JP30 one more chance and connected it to my Chinese Sefsu monoblocks. The result was the same. Almost no music was audible. So I knew neither in single amp mode nor in bi-amping mode the Chady's JP30 was able to produce music with an amp of a different brand, be it solid state or tubes. Let me summarize. Bells with bells, okay. Bells with Chady's, okay. Bells with my Chinese monoblocks, okay. Hi-Fi heaven guaranteed. Chady's with Chady's, okay. Chady's with bells, no sound. Chady's with the Chinese monoblocks, no sound, even with volume opened up to the limit. Hi-Fi hell instead of Hi-Fi heaven. There was no reasonable technical explanation. Had I fallen victim to a conspiracy? Even the seller himself confirmed that this had never happened before with any other combination they had tried and sold in the shop. I packed everything into a taxi and went back to the shop in Bangkok to test the equipment there. The test was performed in the Luxman room, which some viewers may already know from this episode.
Our third room here pretty much recorded our Luxman room because mostly here we display all the Luxman brand that we currently holding right now.
Here everything was unpacked and wired and switched on. We waited and behold, no hum to be heard. So it became clear the bug was in my electric system at home. A bug at least for a princess like the Jadis, because all my other amplifiers had never had an issue with it, and modestly and undemandingly delivered clear and beautiful music. Having struggled with the problem for 3 weeks already without any success, it was time to call in a professional electrician. The demo definitely was an honorable acquittal for the Chadis, but still there are a lot of flies in the ointment, which I'm going to summarize for you. First of all, the Chadis has to be filed under hard-to-digest French delicacies because of its idiosyncrasies. This is as it is. If you buy a complete setup on one single day in one single gulp, you will not run into any problems, except for the possibility that you have a less than paramount house electricity. As far as the matching with other components is concerned, you should be on high alert. His Excellency is not willing to communicate with any subservient he deems unworthy of his condescension. Nobody could tell me if this is due to impedance problems or other specifications. However, not even the excellent electricity of the shop, with Ansu's power cables leading to the wall plugs, could persuade the Chadis to cooperate with my Bell's amplifier. But when another amp came into play, my amp worked perfectly. With a Luxman amp, however, the JDs worked fine. And here comes the problem. The JD's company is a terrible mystery monger. Look at this data sheet. It's the poorest spec sheet I have seen on my hi-fi journey in 50 years. Not even the seller had any knowledge about it. All he could tell me was that the Luxman we just had tried did work. But what were the critical parameters I have to watch out for when buying a matching amp? Mr. First helpfully decided to ask the company themselves. 2 weeks have gone by. I was desperately waiting, but apparently there was no answer from JD's. This shows an absolutely incredible disrespect and negligence, or should I even call it hostility, towards the importer and distributor and towards the customer anyway. Only this I know for sure. The JD's JP30 is something like a princess on the P, extremely difficult to spoil. To make matters worse, there is a number of trifles which do not impair the sound of the device, but the customer's good spirits. For example, there is the wrong labeling on the back of the amp, which indicates an incredible disrespect for a customer who has to pay more than 10,000 euros for the device and who would get a perfect design with any other hi-fi brand in the world. The manual looks cheaper and is much more worthless than that of any cheap China amp. Mostly useless phrases on a few photocopies held together with a chunky plastic spiral. Take a look at the manual of my AccuPhase CD player, and I don't have to waste any more words on this subject. Meanwhile, the troubleshooting in my own home had to go on. An electrician I had to pay from my own pocket could only confirm the various results from my own measurings. In addition, he hammered in a grounding stake in the garden near my listening room, another fruitless expense. We measured soon 0.4 volts from neutral to grounding wire, exactly the same reading we had for the house grounding system. Finally, I called in a team sent by the electricity supplier. A short remark for viewers from other countries. In Thailand, the handover point, including the meter, is in front of the house, not inside. This makes it easier for the staff to read the monthly consumption and to switch off the electricity for people who failed to pay the bill. No irregularities were found. Everything was normal and perfect. Nothing suspicious at all. The technicians said the kind of sound I heard from my speakers was absolutely unlikely to come from the wiring and advised me to talk to my hi-fi dealer to take the amplifier back. Easier said than done. It was not provable that the amp was defective. It had a very, very unreasonable weakness. Is a weakness covered by the warranty? A delicate subject to discuss.
Do you have permission to engage the target?
My very last chance was to order this 100-pound filter monster from a Bangkok company at my own expense, of course. Neither JD's nor the seller, Audio Absolute, will make any contributions, I'm afraid. As soon as the JP30 awakes, there will be this sound. It belongs to this French high-end lady bear, and they are inseparable. Rien ne va plus, I quit. Now let's get to the bottom of the barrel, quality control. The final check for the JP30 was performed by a person called Emily's. That's okay. The final check for the JA30 was done by a ghost who preferred not to leave his name, therefore the form is absolutely worthless. And indeed, the capacitors of one monoblock were loose. I'm going to show you a comparison of the right and left block. And a clip that was recorded by the shop. All capacitors firm and tight. If the incredible sound of the selector switch rendered through my speakers and almost blowing them in only 10 o'clock position is due to the problem in my electric home system or not, I cannot decide at this moment, so I'm just presenting it with reservation and for your entertainment and astonishment. What Hate's French high-end can achieve. I recorded the moment with 2 different cameras to demonstrate that there was no manipulation involved. And after changing the RCA cables only a few times, this happened to the input check of the JA30 monoblock. What a shame, Jadis. I was working at the desk in my office adjacent to my listening room, giving my devices ample time to warm up, when I suddenly heard a wild shooting nearby, like in a cowboy movie, followed by the rustling sound of a giant waterfall, as if the Niagara Falls had been moved into my listening room. Followed by a chaotic acoustic inferno, the kind people like to hear in science fiction films. Like someone bitten by an adder, I worked my way through the room, filled with Star Wars sound, towards the JD's JP30 and pulled the intergalactical emergency brake. No doubt you will understand that I did not switch on the device anymore. I cannot describe how happy I was, really. You didn't get me wrong. I said happy because an illness that has manifested itself openly is a lot easier to cure than a long-winded hidden infirmity. Anyway, the device was sent back to Bangkok for repair. The shop owner himself brought it back after a few days and told me that a blown tube was the culprit, which had caused the spectacle and was also the reason for the incompatibility with all my other amps. He checked my electrical system, which he found immaculate, replaced my complete power and RCA wiring with ansatz cables, and, above all, threw out my aged power conditioner and inserted a Mainz 8 XTC3 instead. And this is what happened. When we used my set of live audio cables, the same majestic calm was achieved. So we knew the calamities had all come from my insufficient power distributor. None of the conditioners previously shown in this video had been able to give the princess the soft pillow she needed, but now she had the ease and the luxury she had been craving for and kept and slept quiet. Not 100%, but to a really tolerable degree.